interclub competition, the UEFA Cup and the Conference League. And of course, remind you of how the semi-final appearance will be. Slowly but surely, we are hitting the last end in terms of the numbers of these years. When I say the last end, the final of this year's UEFA Interclub competitions. And of course, the two teams that will be there for three, the Champions League, the UEFA Cup, and of course, the Conference League. And so all of these will wait to see what will pan out. But we'll be here, we discuss that. And I've got SAMIES. And of course, we also take a look at some of those big games that will be taking place this weekend, and we'll flip over to some tennis. The one happening in Munich and the one going down in Barcelona. All right, so for Barcelona Football Club, I've been seeing the manager Hansi Flick in the last few minutes, giving his press conference, and he's complaining about time. So I wonder what all of this is all about. It was Carlo Ancelotti for the last few days saying their game should have been moved, that game should have been postponed for them to have time to prepare for the game against Arsenal Football Club. That did not happen. Just the last few hours, Ansi also is complaining about the timing for that game against Celta Vigo. All right, so the managers keep saying all of this. We also talk about the MPFL back home. It's a big one in the city of Ibadan on Sunday without the fans. Shooting Stars against Remo Stars. Sammy is here. I know Sammy loves to be a star, and of course, he will be one. So, Sammy, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Let's jump to what we saw last night. Where do you want to pick all of this from? I said for me, what I'll be watching will be the game in Frankfurt between Eintracht Frankfurt and Tottenham Hotspur. And I know many folks will be saying, no, it's the one in Old Trafford. The Old Trafford one is Manchester against Olympique Lyon. 2-2 it ended. And so, maybe that also at the point in time was what I switched to when I was done with the game in Germany. SAMIES, what the ninth on Thursday. Where do you want to pick from? Is it the one that happened in Rome also between Lazio and Bodo Glimt? The team from Norway will get everyone talking. It's giving us focus. It's telling us there's something happening in that Scandinavian country called Norway. So they are in the last four of this year's UEFA Cup, where they'll be playing against Spurs, and that game, the first leg will be in London. And for the other one, it will be Atletico Bilbao, who will be hosting the final of this year's UEFA Cup. They will be home against Manchester United. For Manchester United, what a game yesterday. When you thought they were down and out, they came back and they made it happen. It's been a long, long time they had that kind of feeling at Old Trafford. Sammy, what's the feeling like?
Maybe I'll join lots of Manchester United fans, or the meaning of Manchester United fans, who are so much excited with the level of performance, not performance now, the results in which the guys are putting yesterday. Because when you talk about performance, it's all about a bottle job yesterday, a 2-goal advantage, and then you find yourself trailing by 4-2. If not for the heroics of Casemiro to score at home. And I know that can be mad with the injury that Mario Götze, the man who won the World Cup for Germany in the year 2014, he suffered in the early minutes of that game. Maybe that is one thing that also stopped them. But for 𝐾𝐈𝐒, well, he was there, but not that support he didn't have yesterday. But overall, it was a nice and beautiful games of football we saw yesterday. But then that's for the Europa League and for the Conference League.
We'll come to that Conference League.
Okay.
Let's stay with the Europe. And I like the way you went about it. You mentioned Casemiro. Casemiro watched his former team, Real, 24 hours earlier, knocked out of the UEFA Champions League, and something said to him, you can't just have that happen to you. And that penalty, like you mentioned, SAMIES, was the key element. He was in the box. The referee says there was nothing there. Went to check with VAR, and they said there was something. Penalty converted by Bruno Fernandes. At that point in time, SAMIES, I knew that the noise, knowing fully well that Olympique Lyon were playing with
10 men
less, yes, and United have got the numerical advantage, and they make it count yesterday with Harry Maguire scoring the winning goal. And like you said, once the game hits that moment where we have to go into extra time, Amorim just said to Harry Maguire, we no longer need you playing in the defensive line. You go forward and let's see how we can get those long balls into the box. And immediately they scored the talk to him was that, Mami, go back to the defense, and now you have to defense. I don't know how long United will keep playing Harry Maguire as the number 9. But there we are. We've got this last 4 Bodo Glimt, like I said, will get everyone talking. And there will be this surge and research about where they are. I saw how beautiful that stadium is, and I don't know how many that would be in terms of penalty shootouts, and you kind of think at the penalty shootouts, and you kind of think at the point in time it was in favor of Lazio, but they didn't make it. They didn't hold on to theirs, and the side from Norway end up scoring crucial goals, and of course the goalkeeper keeping them safe in that game. So, Samis, like I said to you yesterday during the UEFA Champions League, do you see two sides from England in the final, Spurs against Manchester, or you think there will be an upset, but a glimpse sending Spurs out of it? But again, we just have to remind our listeners that for Hank Postecoglou, he said a couple of months ago that there's a way he gets to win something big in the second season. Sammy is looking like that. Can Bodo Glimt stop them?
Well, you look at the ride in which Bodo Glimt are on now. I mean, maybe you think that Bodo Glimt can maybe do it, because I've seen Bodo Glimt defeat Porto this season. That was, I think, match day one of the UEFA Europa League. That's in the league phase. And then we've seen the performance that they've also given. That's en route to the semi-finals of this year's edition of the UEFA, that's Europa League. Because, well, I think they played against Olympiacos. That's in the round of 16. They lost in the first leg, and in the second leg, they actually, I think it was a comeback for them. No, they lost in the second leg. In the first leg, they won by 3-0, and their home has really been a big fortress for them. You know, they defeated the Lazio 2-0 last week, and yesterday they lost 2-0 away in Naples. Yesterday, that was yesterday in Rome, rather. In Rome. They lost by 2-0, but just the vital moment for them. Their goalkeeper was their hero. And I look at it that for Tottenham Hotspur, amongst all their struggles, it's all about who has the better team at this point. And I see Tottenham having the better team if by that's May 1st, they don't have injuries added to their defense line, because the presence of Mickey van der Ven and Christian Romero, I think it's an added advantage for Tottenham Football Club. Despite their attacking frame, which they have, Heung-min Son was not available yesterday, but they talk about other attackers. I think those ones can get the job done. But when you talk about the defense line, nobody can actually be like Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven.
Yeah, Matthias is also super excited. His parent club, Bayern Munich, will bounce out of the UEFA Champions League. Now he's on loan with Spurs and in the last four. So talking about Spurs and Manchester United, both cannot, I repeat, cannot qualify for the UEFA Champions League based on where they are on the league. So Sami will be putting so much energy, so much tenacity in the UEFA Cup to see if they can win it. If they go ahead to win, one of them go ahead to win, that means they'll be part of the big boys talking about the UEFA Champions League for 25-26 season. For Bodo Glimt and for Athletic Bilbao, they're not doing badly. They're still in the top four of the Spanish La Liga, and they've got a heavyweight game coming up this weekend against Real Madrid. Samis, let's jump to the UEFA Conference League, this third tier of European club competition. Chelsea got their job done away from home in Poland, Legia to be precise, where the final will be taking place. But yesterday they lost at home by 2-1. And this is not good for Chelsea. Yes, we know you won the first leg comfortably by 3-0. But how come home in front of the fans and you don't get to win this game where you lost by 2-1?
Well, I think that has also defined the Chelsea season, starting from December, where they've actually struggled for consistency in most of their games. And remember that I said that for Chelsea Football Club, all the league phase games that they played in the Europa, that's in the Conference League, I think they've not actually come up with like tough opposition. All respect to all the teams they've played against, they've not actually come up against that top opposition. And now, I want to see how Fiorentina are going to cope if Fiorentina are just not destined to win the Europa Conference League. Because look at the last two editions. They were the beaten finalists in all of the Europa Conference League.
The manager that was in charge, Italiano, is now with Bologna Football Club.
So you look at it now, can they really do something against that Real Betis first if they can get into the finals? But for Chelsea, they'll be up against Juve. Well, I think this is another easy part for Chelsea to get into the finals. But the main test for Chelsea actually would be in the finals if they can actually stand the test of time. And before that, May 28th.
All right. So I'm just trying to check and see where the clubs that will be playing against Jorgensen ended. Jorgensen, where they finished during the group stage, they finished fifth, and like you mentioned, Chelsea, they went all the way, winning games back to back in the UEFA Conference League, but they lost one yesterday, and outside they will be playing against in the last four of this year's UEFA Conference League, and the first leg will be at home where they will be playing against Chelsea Football Club. Last night it was good for them. They went to Rapid Vienna in Austria, where they won by 4-1 after losing the first leg by 0-0. But this time they went away from home, and for Rapid, they got 2 men in that game sent off in that encounter. So that means the other games saw the likes of Betis, of course, who got the job done away from home against 𝐿𝐴, where they won. And of course, last night in Florence, the game ended 2 apiece, but 4-3 on aggregate. And of course, the other game, Real Betis also went away from home and got the job done earlier. But got the job done at home, that is Seville. Betis end up picking up a draw in the second leg game last night, and of course, as mentioned, Chelsea against Legia Warsaw. So the semi-final appearance also is right there for everyone to see. It will be Real Betis in Seville in the first leg against Fiorentina Football Club, while Chelsea will be up against the Juggernaut. We'll go on a quick timeout. When we come back, we've got more to tell you. Don't forget, we'll be taking a look at some of the big games this weekend. And should it start against Vermont also, we'll get us stuck in tennis. If we have time, we'll share with you. It's 94.9 32 FM.
You're listening to 32 FM 94.9.
Tí wọ́n bá bi ọ́ léèrè pé kí o dárúkọ eré ìdíje géèmù mánigbàgbé tó dángájá, bẹ̀tánù ni ìdáhùn rẹ̀ lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́. Ó yá tààrà ṣàṣà kí ìwọ náà bá wọn jẹ àǹfààní nínú géèmù alárinrin tó fanimọ́ra ní ìpele pẹ̀lú ẹgbẹ̀rún lọ́nà igba 200,000 owó ìkíni káàbọ̀ àti àwọn ẹ̀bùn mìíràn bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Bẹ̀tánù ayò ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ báyìí. Forí pípẹ́ tayò yìí o. Ó bẹ̀rẹ̀ látòrí ọmọ ọdún 18 lọ sókè. Alájọṣepọ̀ ẹgbẹ́ Aston Villa ni wá.
Feel better about your life.
32 FM 94.9, the antidote to depression.
Welcome back. So let's hit the home stretch on the show this afternoon. Scoreboard Reloaded. I am Peter Omo, and I've got SAMIES with me. So let's quickly tell you some of the games that will be big this weekend. And of course, Villa against Newcastle at Villa Park for 5:30. Villa out of the FA Champions League. Unai want to pay attention now to see if his team can finish in the top 5 and qualify for the FA Champions League. They cannot win the league, but let's see where they will finish. SAMIES, how big will this be, seeing how Newcastle are flying 2 games back-to-back wins? They're third on the log as we speak right now. Hopefully they can have Eddie back. I've not been able to confirm that if Eddie Howe will be back with the team, but they've scored plenty of goals, 9 to be precise, 4 against Manchester United, 5 against Crystal Palace. Without their head coach, maybe someone will be saying, Coach, just keep chilling, because now you're not here, we're getting the goals, but that's on a lighter note. But SAMIES, how big is this for Villa, knowing that a win for them would push them up the ladder?
Looking at the contest of these fixtures, yes, for Aston Villa, they qualified for the UEFA Champions League last season, finishing that's third. Yes, third. Is it third or fourth? Third on the UEFA Champions League coefficient for last season. And then this season, their season also, it has not really been pleasant, because they had Champions League football to also contend with. And then you look at how the table has been in the English Premier League, especially from third position down to the 7th position, in which Aston Villa they occupy. For Newcastle, who had the back-to-back victories, and they actually had 59. They have 59 points, and that actually marks the solid run of form. They've had 5 straight victories for Newcastle. For Nottingham Forest, it has not been the best also for them. 2 straight defeats. They have 57 points, and for Manchester City, they have 55 points. Chelsea, they have 54 points alongside Aston Villa. So I think going into this weekend, a victory for Aston Villa, who are at home at the Villa Park, and remember that they would have their fans also going for them at this weekend, because they gave a really good performance against the Paris Saint-Germain. That was on Tuesday night, in which they won 3-2, but they lost the battle. They lost the war, but that's on an aggregate scoreline to the hands of Paris Saint-Germain. So maybe this will be also something to propel their season the more, and let's see where they are just going to finish in the last 6 games to go there in the English Premier League. And I'm very sure that for Unai Emery, he knows what it takes, and he would make sure that inside they get a victory against that Newcastle Football Club, where I say that though they are getting the goals, but you know that the goals that can actually, or it might run dry. Why am I saying it might run dry? Of 9 goals they scored in their last 2 games, Isak only got 1 goal, 1 assist.
But that, on the flip side, for me, is good.
That
shows that take him out of the team will still score.
But can you bank on the consistency of the likes of Murphy and Barnes, That's the thing where I said
But
that.
but they've shown Harvey Barnes without Antonio
Gordon.
Anthony Gordon now, not new now. No, it's English. It's not Spanish or Latin. But they've been able to score the goals. Harvey Barnes have been able to get into the side without the former Everton man. And we see what he has been doing for Murphy on the right-hand flank, what he's been doing. And, of course, the man that I think is working well with the team in terms of going forward and defending, the Italian, Sergio Tonelli.
Well, you look at Aston Villa and you say that, well, I know they've also dropped to the bench their striker, or the man whom we know as their striker, Oli Watkins, and Marcus Rashford has been deployed in that position of late. And then you just look at it that, okay, what can happen in this game? It's going to serve us goals. Yes, I know about that. But Aston Villa and Unai Emery, I'm very sure they know what it takes to actually defeat a Newcastle Football Club.
So
that's in this fixture. And I really, well, yes, I might be so confident, but in their last outing, it was just a Newcastle getting a 3-0 victory over Aston Villa.
Right.
And in that game, it was Gordon, Isak, and Joelinton who scored in that game.
All right, so we'll wait to see. SAMIES checking his crystal ball, says Villa at Villa Park will get this one done in the city of Birmingham. All right, so still staying with some of the games to go down this weekend. They might not be big, but these games can be of consequence. Leicester will play against Liverpool, and at the end of the day, watch and listen to Ruud van Nistelrooy talking about the when and the if. SAMIES, I think Leicester City is not about the if, it's just the time of when. Because for me, I think they're going to go down. That we'll talk about in a few minutes. And of course, the big one for me in London, we'll see Fulham play against Chelsea Football Club. Hey, Fulham can hurt that whole Chelsea trying to qualify for the UEFA Champions League. So I'm quickly run us through this. Your thoughts: Fulham against Chelsea and Leicester against Liverpool. And you might also want to have the other game on Sunday, Ipswich against Arsenal. You think Arsenal should rest a few players because now they have their eyes on the game coming up this month against Paris Saint-Germain in the UEFA Champions League. Manchester United will be basking in the euphoria of that win against Olympique Lyon last night. Will be up against Wolves. So these are the 5 games on Sunday. Run us through that in 1 minute because we have some other games, especially back home here, Shooting Stars against Remo Stars.
Well, for the games on Sunday in the English Premier League, Fulham against the Chelsea Football Club. Remember, Chelsea, they are also vying to qualify for the UEFA Champions League via automatic qualification. And remember that if they win the Europa Conference League, the most they could get, or they can get, is playing in the UEFA Europa League.
That's what they will get.
But now they want to join the party of the big boys, qualifying automatically for that's at the UEFA Champions League places. And for Fulham also, they are still fighting for European places, if not the UEFA Champions League, but the UEFA Europa League. Remember now we have 5 sides set to qualify for the UEFA Champions League in England, where we have 6th and 7th playing in the UEFA Europa League. Maybe, but then we just see how that would go for them. But for this game at the Craven Cottage for Fulham against Chelsea, it's all about their run of form. Fulham, they've been blowing hot and cold with just 2 victories in their last 5 games and 3 defeats. And the biggest one for them was defeating Liverpool Football Club by 3-2.
Yeah.
And then for Chelsea, well, in their last 3 games, they've not suffered a defeat in the league, but 1 defeat in their last 5 games also shows that Chelsea, they really have a struggle. And it is much more evident with the struggle going on with Cole Palmer, whom I think the squad or the team has been built around and is not getting the goals. The goals that they've dried up for Cole Palmer. But how can Enzo Maresca change a lot of dynamics within Chelsea Football Club? I think he only has a template as well, which is something that football fans want to see. Put a bit of a dynamics to this team, and it's just so sad that another man who has been called upon to deploy in the absence of that's Nicholas Jackson, or maybe come and serve or deputize Nicholas Jackson. He also struggles to get his foot or to hit the ground running when they give him the opportunity to start the game.
Yesterday was talking about how they can't keep relying on Marco Corella to get them the goals. It's a different.
He got 2 goals yesterday. One was chalked off for offside, and then even Corella himself said that he preferred to get his team to win than score goals.
All right. So the other games, don't forget I mentioned Leicester against Liverpool. SAMIES will not be able to get to that because of our time. Let's jump straight to Italy because for the Italians on Sunday, big game starting from 5. Bologna will play against Inter Milan. Inter Milan sit flying on the first sit top of the Italian league, and then later in the 9th for 7:45. will be AC Milan up against Atalanta coming in from city of Bergamo. SAMIES, 2 heavyweight game. And Napoli will be watching because they'll be playing that game earlier before the Bologna-Inter Milan game. This is a tough one, SAMIES, for Inter Milan. Yes, they've got their eyes on the game against Football Club Barcelona in the UEFA Champions League. But quickly, SAMIES, let's do these. Bologna, Inter Milan, and AC Milan against Atalanta.
Well, for the game between Bologna and Inter Milan, it's all about the title race for Inter Milan. And I think they are the only one vying for that position alongside Napoli Football Club, who, of course, like you said, they'll be in action a day before that Inter Milan, who are in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. But looking at this context also, for Bologna, they qualified for the UEFA Champions League last season, but this season has not really been that's pretty solid for them, but they still found themselves within the mix of vying for that European places with 57 points and a victory. They are playing at home. A victory over Inter Milan would only mean one thing, and it's the only thing it means is that they are getting closer to qualifying for UEFA Champions League places. And that would also be at the detriment of Inter Milan, hoping to win this Scudetto title. Yeah. Should Napoli get a victory also over the course of the weekend. And then AC Milan are playing against the Atlanta Football Club. Yeah. Atlanta, they got to their groove back where they got a victory last weekend. And I'm very sure Gasperini also will look at it that, okay, let's get some more points and see if teams ahead of us can drop points. You know, it's just about 6 games left to go. That's in the Italian Serie A as well. But for Atlanta, the biggest for them is also making UEFA Champions League spaces again and then see how they can go far later next season.
All right, so Atalanta third as we speak, Juventus fourth, and Inter and Napoli are pushing. Okay, before we talk about shooting stars in a moment, don't forget on the continent, Africa, the CAF Champions League semi-final games will start on Saturday, just 2 games in Mamelodi Sundowns. And Pretoria will be up against Al Ahly of Egypt. That's a big game, 2 p.m. in case you want to know. And the other one will be Orlando Pirates will be up against Pyramids of Egypt. So it's more saying that Egyptian side against the South African side. Sam is quickly here. Let's wrap up the show. Shooting stars against Remo Stars without the fans.
Well, it's just quite unfortunate that Shooting Stars they found themselves in this situation where they'll be playing, if not their biggest game of the season, because we lost by a goal. I think we lost by a goal to nil back then in Ikene, and then we are back home now, and we lost by 2 goals to nil rather, and then we are back home now. How do we get this victory over Remo Stars behind closed doors? Remember that for Remo Stars also, I think a victory for them and this weekend would actually crown them as champions of the of the Nigeria Premier Football League with just 4 games left to spare. They get a victory in one of their 4 games and then they are champions of the Nigeria Premier Football League.
Shooting Stars will never want that to happen.
And Shooting Stars, of course, are for bragging rights. You can't come to our home and then be crowned champions on our own turf.
No.
That happens. But
somebody hopefully is telling the players this and the staff that Remo Stars should not come here and
but you look at how
league.
This season has actually been for Shooting Stars. I think it's of mixed reaction, mixed feeling.
Yeah.
11 defeats, 9 draws, 13 victories from 33 games. Goal difference of 1. I mean, it's not the best of for Shooting Stars. And then 𝐵𝐃 and the rest of the backroom staff, the management of the club, they really need to find a solution next season. But I know we are actually out of time. Yeah. But yes, UEFA Women's Champions League semi-final games also set to go down this weekend, where Arsenal will be up against they'll be up against Lyon, the most dominant side in the UEFA Women's Champions League, and for Chelsea, they'll be up against the Barcelona Feminine once again in the UEFA Women's Champions League.
Good to see 2 English women's team in the last 4 of these years UEFA Champions League. And of course, we'll bring all of this to you when we come on Monday. But before Monday, Saturday is here, 3 to 6. It's all about football. Lee James and Jennings, they will be here to help us cover the Premier League game between 3 to 5, and we'll see how we juggle things around here between here and London. All right, so we wish we can talk tennis, but our time is out. Coming up, once we're out of here, is the news for 4. Then we'll have Home Run with some fantastic music. As you go home 5, Krista will be here in the